Welcome back. Many calls have been made for second testing of individuals who traveled to St. Lucia during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Alan Chasney says the public needs to understand that the island has always had a two-tier system when it comes to testing of visitors and returning nationals. Genevieve Gonzague tells us more in this report.
Barbados introduced mandatory second COVID-19 testing for all visitors and returning nationals in October. Given that St. Lucia has seen a steady increase in the number of COVID-19 cases on island, many have called for St. Lucia to follow in Barbados' footsteps. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Alan Chasney explained that there are second tests being administered in St. Lucia.
We do a second test, and we've been doing a second test from day one. Anybody who is in quarantine before they're allowed to go out are tested a second time.
He says the difference is the time frame within which the tests are done.
The issue that is coming up is when that second test should be done. In the case of Barbados, they do the second test after the 4th day. And once you've completed the second test, then you're free to go out into the country. Our CMO has still not approved testing after the 4th day. She still believes that persons need to be tested maybe on the 7th day, which we're doing now, but they still have to remain in quarantine. And she has been working with PAHO and CARFA on the evidence to suggest whether it should be 5 days, 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. I don't know. I really leave those things to her. But a second test has never been an issue here.
Chasney is adamant that the system being used in St. Lucia is working, and if any changes are to be made, the Chief Medical Officer will seek guidance in accordance to what regional health agencies such as PAHO and CARFA say.
We've always known that we've had two policies. One policy to deal with tourists, and because we can contain them in a controlled environment, and also nationals or persons coming to remain for a longer period of time in St. Lucia, they have been required to do a 14-day quarantine before they can come out freely into our thing. And I want to say this, both policies have worked. So we've shown that we have found that perfect balance between being commercially viable as well as providing the maximum amount of protection health-wise to our citizenry.
The Prime Minister was adamant that the government has found a way to balance lives and livelihoods, and it seems to be working. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
After video footage of two visitors roaming the streets of St. Lucia without masks went viral, many expressed their anger. These individuals have since left the island. A man who identifies himself as Gary, the tourist, in the viral video, has since written a letter expressing his dissatisfaction with the way he was treated in St. Lucia. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism says a lot can be learned from the incident.
The Floridian tourist who went viral when he and his partner were recorded walking in Grosile without a mask, thereby contravening COVID-19 law, has penned a response. Gary, as he identifies himself in a letter to online news agency St. Lucia Times, claims that he was not only interrogated by the person shooting the video, but was also verbally abused by another local. Gary explains in his letter that he and his partner live on a sailboat and their last time in Florida was in January. The pair arrived in St. Lucia via sailboat on the 4th of November. He says all documents to prove that they were tested and quarantined at their previous stop in St. Vincent were presented. Gary also claims that he and his partner took their cue from locals who they witnessed walking around without masks when not in direct contact with others. He called on St. Lucia to revisit its attitude to visitors, claiming that he was targeted because of his skin color. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Donalyn Vite, has weighed in on the situation.
My response to that is, as a country and as a people, we need to be very practical, and the expectations that we have for others, we also need to have for ourselves.
Observe the rules themselves. She says the manner in which St. Lucians demanded that the tourists keep the protocol should be the same manner with which they observe the rules themselves.
We need to understand and be a little more responsible in adhering to the protocols. Whereas we have two persons that were highlighted, I want to look at them not in the context of tourism, but in the context of people and how we respond to the protocols and how this response now could mean a lowering of the incidence of COVID for us, attracting more business to St. Lucia and attracting more tourism to St. Lucia. So I want to use that as an example, not just for tourism, but as a nation and as a people, how will we respond and how we protect St. Lucia for all of us.
Vite says this incident should encourage everyone to ensure they are adhering to the set protocols. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
That was Aaron Alexander. Now, viewer discretion is advised for this next story that can only be described as bizarre. A dead man was embalmed into a sitting position, placed in the tray of a hearse, and given an open-air last ride past the office of the Prime Minister in Trinidad and Tobago on his way to his funeral. Dressed in a suit and in a chair, murdered Shay Lewis was placed in the back of a pickup van by Denny's Funeral Home and driven around Port of Spain on Wednesday morning. Witnesses were stunned. Several videos of the last ride were posted on social media, with many commenting that this was proof that Trinidad is not a real place. Lewis, 29, and his father, Adley Lewis, 49, were shot and killed on the 15th of November at their home at Diego Martin. The funeral was streamed live on social media, but not all the viewers were aware that the man sitting at the entrance of the church was actually the deceased. You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, government says distribution of laptops and e-books to all students to commence soon. But does the public think it's too little, too late? And People's Parliament takes shape.